Okay, so all of that leads to 50 some odd games left. What do we need to see here the rest of the way outside of, listen, still on the table for me, because this is just the way my brain works, damn it. Still on the table for me is the out of nowhere 12-game win streak. And you go, okay, hold on a second.
Hello, 1993 Braves.
Let's not push the red button yet.
Yeah.
However, highly, highly, highly unlikely. And so outside of that, what is it that matters to you with regard to the remaining games left and what you want to see in terms of how it builds for next year?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I mean, this is something that I geek out on. I'd like to see Alex Wood get to the double-digit mark, and then you'd have 3 double-digit winners in your starting rotation. Now, Rodon's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Highly doubtful that they do what they did with Crawford, where you get a 2-year extension at the end of the year. But God, would we all love a 3 or 4 year extension before he even hit free agency? We would all love it. Highly doubtful. But I want to see Webb finish on a strong note. But the number one guy for me is Joey Bart, because even if this year is a lost year and they don't qualify for the playoffs, if you could come out of this year and you say Joey Bart found a way to be an everyday big league hitter, we know he's a defensive catcher who can do that, hitter as a 6th hitter or 7th hitter for next year. Boy, wouldn't that salvage and be a silver lining for the whole year?
Look, at the time of us sitting here having this conversation, I know it's only been, I think, 8 games, but his OPS in the month of August is over 1,000. Okay. And so if you compare even 3/4 of that with the defensive player he is, the power that he is starting to show again, then yes, don't let it be lost on you, Giants fans, that potentially exactly what we were hoping for is here. The whole idea was, let's start to see some of the homegrown players come in. And I know they're not Farhan guys yet, but Logan Webb has quietly solidified what he did last year as, there's that F word again, not a fluke. Okay, so Logan Webb, a staple of your rotation for a long period of time. Joey Bart comes up. It doesn't look good. It's an automatic strikeout. He goes down to Sacramento. Couple of tweaks, had to come back earlier than they wanted to. But even though I think he hit 240 in July, I mean, that's a hell of a lot better than 160.
The at-bats just look way better too.
Right. The average is now up to about 215, 220, which you can thumb your nose at. But when it was at 160 over a long period of time, that takes a lot to get 160 up toward 220. So he has played very, very well. And maybe that is the start. Maybe that's the start of what you hope is a somewhat steady flow of action coming out of the farm system. Kyle Harrison is next, and I think he can be in the rotation next year. And by the way, I'll add that to our conversation with regard to what I want to see over the next 50 games. If this thing gets totally out and they are just big time eliminated, let's see a start. Let's see it.
I would love it.
Bring him
I would
up.
love that. Well, not only that, if he could show you, even if it's just one game, just envision if they retain Rodon, you got Webb, Rodon, Harrison, Wood, and then whatever you got in the 5th starter, DeSclafani, Junis, whoever you're piecemealing at the end. That might be the best rotation in baseball. I mean, at least on paper, so I love that. Here's another guy that I'm looking at for the last 50 or so games, Camilo Duvall. Now, 20 feels reasonable in terms of the amount of saves that he could get. I would love 25. That seems aggressive, but 20 saves and then just feeling good heading into the offseason. If you told me, Joe, we've got an ace, a backstop, and a closer, okay, now we've built a team a little bit here.
Yeah, and I'm less looking at the number of saves, and what I want to see is the number of fastballs he throws on the black like he did in San Diego, because that right there was the most unhittable strike I have seen a major league pitcher throw all year long. That pitch at the end of the at-bat to Josh Bell, 103 on the paint. I don't care who you are. That's unhittable. And that's all we're really doing when we're waiting for Duvall, is for him to have confidence in where the fastball is going.
So true.
So, similar to, we're talking a lot about Trey Lance right now and always throwing a pick here or there. Well, maybe he's trying some things because it's practice.
Yeah.
So maybe he's going a little riskier than he normally would. Well, Camilo, you don't trust your fastball? Guess what? Right now is a great time to see if you can find it. because what's the worst thing that could happen? You could fall from third place to third place. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, that guy's got to find his fastball control because it's going to unlock his whole career.
He added a sinker over the last couple of weeks, and it's just changed his whole repertoire. He's not so
miles an hour. Yeah.
But I love it because like he was so slider heavy, and everyone's like, God, you got to embrace the 100-mile-an-hour fastball. But the sinker somewhere has like helped him embrace the fastball. Love where he's at right now. He's the most exciting player outside of Bart on this team. When he comes into games, like that game 1-0 the other night, that might have been the most fun I've had in the last month and a half watching this Giants team.
Yeah. And it was a 1-0 baseball game that even had its own typical situational hitting frustrations. But yeah, that's worth the price of admission for sure. And then what you're also looking for out of that, and this is something that our insider Alex Pavlovich said to us the other day. He said the vibe in San Diego, as far as the crowd, it is the best in baseball, and it's not close. And so what you're looking for is that kind of thing from a Logan Webb to a Doval to a Joey Bart, and it doesn't even have to be the young homegrown players. I think that's key, but. What are you going to do the rest of the year, JD Davis? I don't think you're going to do this, but my God, like, do you have someone there? Yeah. I don't think people realize when they see JD Davis. I think Giants fans, because it was a deadline thing, they're like, oh, he's a free agent, or they keep him at no, like he's under control.
Yeah.
This is somebody who, again, it's been a week and a half, but like, can he become a second half of the roster rotational piece that can play first base, play third base, crush lefties? Oh, he's kind of like Darren Ruff who can play third.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you got Darren Ruff who can play third in exchange for Darren Ruff and 3 prospects to go with it, I know it doesn't excite people, but that's a really good deal.
No, so I'm with you there.
It's information gathering right now and hopefully excitement building. Yeah. Because what you want to do is have your fans' minds in a good spot when you hopefully go out this off season and spend some damn money.
I know. There's 2 other guys that I'm looking at who are younger players, and I just don't know what to make of them right now in terms of where they fit. I think they'll be invited next year to be on this team. I just don't know what their impact will be. Are they, bench role players? Like, what are they going to get this offseason? But Estrada and Luis Gonzalez, these are 2 younger guys who they found on the scrap heap. And I think they're contributors. I just don't know where they stand. I don't think either is an everyday player, but I would like to see them finish the year strong because they've had good years, but how you finish really matters for, I think, Giants fans and how the front office is viewing them.
Well, particularly Gonzalez, because Gonzalez has been called this year's Wade.
Yeah.
And he's struggling over the last week and a half. And what I don't want to see is for Gonzalez to come back next year and look like Wade this year. Estrada, I worry less about because he's essentially just looked good.
Yeah.
I don't know when Estrada has not looked really good. Like, versatile piece. What's that?
Defensively.
Well, defensively, there have been some moments, sure. But, versatile enough piece who can do things up the middle of the diamond and hit, and sometimes hit with pop. I don't think there's any question there's a place for Thairo Estrada on this team next year. Gonzalez, probably, but yeah, I think the last 50 games are really, really big for him because you see guys come up and they pop, and then you get a scouting report on them, and then suddenly the league has figured him out. And so I want to see him get back on top and show some consistency and build toward him being on the roster next year.
Part of how they found Tyler Rogers was, spinning the wheel in 2020, trying to find guys who could contribute for that bullpen. And then eventually he kind of found a role and had a monster year last year. Could a guy like Gregory Santos come up from AAA? I'm just throwing his name out there, but any one of these random AAA arms come up and try to prove themselves in the final couple of months in the way that Camilo Doval did also to earn a spot for next year, because I'm already trying to rework this bullpen for next year.
Well, why not? Why not? I mean, if there is a roster construction failure that I want to point out, it's not the one that most people talk about. It's the bullpen. Oh. How do you run the San Francisco Giants and know their history and know that 3 World Series championships came because of Javi Lopez and Jeremy Affeldt and Sergio Romo and B. Weezy and everything that happened out in that bullpen, even when Madison Bumgarner joined it for one very special game. Like, the bullpen is the least sexy but most important thing. If you look right now at bullpen war, you read the top 10 teams, you're like, oh, those are the good teams. Read the bottom 10 teams, you're like, oh, those are the bad teams. Guess where the Giants are? They're in the bottom 10. Like, we can talk all day long about, well, either lineup doesn't have enough pop, and they don't leave their starters in long enough. Their defense is bad. These are all fair points. This is a winning baseball team if they had last year's bullpen, period.
I'm with you on that.
Period.
Agreed.
And so to really make no acquisitions in the bullpen all year, before the year, at the deadline, think about it. 0 acquisitions, essentially. Yeah, they got some minor leaguers that they brought up, Alex Young. But like, going out and getting established bullpen arms, they never did it. And so they turned their back on something that they darn well know is really important, and that's disappointing.
It's very frustrating. And that's like, as we see Juan Soto go to the Padres and we see what the Dodgers have built, they need everyday players. No one is disputing that. You and I are in unison. Like, you got to get some everyday players. Like, we agree there. But philosophically, I have to load up on pitching. It's the great equalizer. It's the one area of strength for the team currently. Closer, 2 top-end rotation guys. If you can build a great rotation and get back to a good to great bullpen, Mark, it solves so many issues.
Yep.
Now, obviously, defense goes with that, because with pitching, you got to play defense. That goes without saying. But, man, if they can just get an elite pitching staff in that bullpen again, you're right. They should be 5, 6, 7 games over 500 right now, if we're being really honest.
That's winning time. If you can't pitch in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, you can't win.
Yeah.
You can't win that way. Which brings us to, for me, what is the largest point of all with regard to this organization right now. This is Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys, the Giants podcast through the eyes of the Giants fan. It's for you as well. Mark Willard, Joe Shasky. Join us twice a week. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe.